Does everybody see the article? Can I get a nod? Okay, super.
Yep.
Okay, thanks. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Go ahead and mute yourselves. I like seeing you guys, but you can mute yourselves if you want. If the people's boxes along the right side of your screen, you can minimize that. At the top of the top box, you'll see a bunch of little squares. So if they're covering up part of the article, you can get rid of those spaces that way. Maintaining became my an obsession a couple of years ago when I got into a conversation with some professional trainers. And I like to bring up these topics to my peers, my friends. And the question was, if a behavior is trained super, super well from the start, meaning the foundation was done correctly and the dogs had comprehension and the behavior had been proofed, would that behavior stand up and stay as strong as it was from the time it was trained during sequence and coursework? Would the behavior get stronger during sequence and coursework? Or would the behavior disintegrate during sequence and coursework? So what I mean by sequence and coursework, guys, is class. You train your poles, you train your teeter, you train your directionals, you train your turn cues, and then you go to class and you run sequences. And I don't know about you, but in the classes that I teach, well, I better be careful because some of my students are in this class. But in general, most classes, and lots of mine too, especially in the past, have been sequence and coursework. You number a drill and you run it. You number a drill and you run it. Sometimes the drills are short, sometimes the drills are long, but we're preparing our students for competition. So we don't have time to single out everything that might need maintenance. And what I determined through lots of conversations with my colleagues and from thinking about it lots and lots and lots and lots is that the individual dog determines whether or not the particular behaviors that are trained are maintained, strengthened, or weakened during sequence and coursework, during regular practicing. So that's when I started, because if I said to you, you had to maintain everything the way I maintain my contacts and my poles for this particular dog, there was not enough hours in the day. We would never get fluent in sequence and coursework, and we wouldn't have smooth runs in competition, because getting smooth over 20 obstacles is a thing. You got to practice that. Getting fluent in a 4 to 7 obstacle sequence is a thing. You've got to get fluent in that. So there's only so many hours in the day, and there are people that enjoy the sport of agility that also have families and friends. So, and jobs that they like to do. They're not doing agility all the time like some of us are. So with that, I began to say, let's look at the individual breeds, the individual training, and the individual dog to see which of those obstacles. The tunnel, you guys, is the classic obstacle that gets stronger. But sometimes the control around the tunnel gets weaker. So if you've got a real strong tunnel cue, and then you've trained a real strong stick to my leg cue, like a stay on me, don't take the tunnel cue, and you're not maintaining either, meaning you're not having specific training sessions, you're just doing sequence and coursework, chances are more than likely your dog's tunnel behavior is going to get stronger and your stick to your leg cue is going to get weaker. And part of that's just preference on the dog. You know, I had a dog, his name was Ty, and he loved to weave more than anything. He was a real tactile dog. He liked to squeeze onto me, and he liked to be held and touched. So his weave poles, I'm telling you, I could say, no, come here, and he would finish the poles. He loved them. They were self-rewarding. My new dog, he's not new, not anymore, but my current competition dog, he doesn't feel the same way about the weep holes. He loves the weep holes just fine. He's happy to do them. I've built a lot of value in his poles, but if he doesn't get some help periodically, I talked about him in the article, he is, I'm not going to have his poles. I was watching some runs of his from nationals, 2 different nationals. We were looking for some video to do a presentation. And I thought, wow, I can really get off of his poles. But you know what, how much maintenance I do before a national event on his poles? I mean, I'm working on it 15 minutes, 5 times a week, a month before a national competition. And I'm talking extreme handling. I'm talking 50 feet away, wild rear crosses and all kinds of things as extreme as I can get. So first of all, determining which of the skills, if you don't, it's not brain surgery, guys, your dog will tell you which skills are weakening and which skills are strengthening. If you can move away from this, he's blowing me off, he's not listening, he's not that, know that skills, I'm daydreaming of an app where we can have a rating on our skills, obstacle skills, directional skills, sequence skills, configuration skills, where we can maybe, get little warnings about, if we've rated them low recently, we can know that when we go to train that week, we need to focus on, do a little bit on that. You guys, I have a back to kindergarten move on all of my behaviors. And that's how I taught the dog. So when my behaviors get weak, I don't go, oh, he's starting to lose it. Let me see if he'll understand it if I do it this way, a little different. I go back, I say, hey, remember this, pal? Remember when I do this, I want you to do that. And 9 times out of 10, after 2 reps, oh yeah, I remember. Close means I eat on your leg. Yeah. Close means there's steak right on your knee. Yeah, I remember. So I like going back to kindergarten where the dog has been. That's my refresher course when my dog is seemingly acting like he's not trained. So when I used to get frustrated when I didn't get a behavior that I thought I deserved, that old he knows that, or, he's, my least favorite comment in our sport is he's blowing me off. He forgot, or what I started telling myself when I would think something negative about my poor 4-legged partner is I would say, guess that wasn't as well trained as I thought. I thought it was better trained than that, but he just didn't do it. He popped out of the poles when I peeled off. He thought I meant the tunnel, or he took the excuse to exit at pole 10 because he wanted the tunnel. And I gave a little blink, or I breathed that way, or I, sneezed. And he said, cool, I'll take that as an excuse because he hadn't had enough practice. Doesn't matter how much practice it was. That's the other trap I fell into. It was, well, he saw it on Wednesday. Well, maybe he needed to see it on Thursday and Friday too, if the trial was on Saturday. And I always hear, I live with so many students over so many years, I hear the response, well, if I drill him, he won't be happy and then he'll be slow. Well, yeah, then don't do that. It's like, it hurts when I do this, then don't do, yeah, you do have to find a balance. Yes, it takes some thinking. Yes, it requires lots and lots and lots of thought. So that covers which skills to maintain. And looking at your skills as handling skills, go out, come in, stay out, go out and stay out, come in and stay in, come in and stay in and pass something, come in, stay in, pass 2 somethings, come in, stay in, pass 2 somethings, and have one of those somethings be your favorite something. So that when the dog struggles, you can say, yeah, he knows stick on my leg, but he don't know it that close to that tunnel. And he knows to pass the first tunnel entrance when I tell him. I'll never forget when when the judges very first, you got to remember, I've been with the sport since the beginning of time, literally. I remember when the judges first said it's not the logical end of the tunnel. It's like, oh my gosh, we got to go in the other end. We've been programming these dogs see hole, enter, see hole, enter, see hole, enter. And then we all got really good. That's what happens in agility. The judges get one up on us, and then we all jump on that bandwagon and we get good at whatever they're doing. And then the clever devils, they'll get just that strong link that we all got because we've been obsessing on their last trick. And then they trick us again. And that's what trends and course designs do. That's like in almost every nationals, at some point, there's a tunnel right next to a dog walk, because that classic discrimination, you know, when they first started it, we all got great at it. They could never get us. And then they take it away, and then they bring it back once a year. And you either kept those skills up to date, or your dog stayed on the path you put him on, or you got better at setting lines to correct obstacles, even when they're that close. So I digress slightly, but I want to get you thinking, so when we get to questions, you'll have them for me. So I do look at my skills as handling skills, training skills, obstacle skills, directionals, and then kind of space. So contact and weave poles are the classic. But one thing that's not a classic is going into the ring. Like when you go into the ring, some dogs get a little down. They're like, oh, this is where it gets hard. This is where she's not happy. This is where I feel pressure. And other dogs are, yeehaw, this is where nothing matters. I can just do whatever the heck I want. I can fly up the contacts. I can go visit at the fence and come on back and keep on going. And so our dog's interpretation of the ring changes. So again, it's noticing, what does my dog think about it? What is my dog, how does he act? And am I getting what I want, or do I have to do something about it? You guys, that's all it is. If your dog isn't going into the ring the way you like, he needs some refresher courses. So Tuxedo, some border collies take agility really seriously. You know, I lead out and I look at their faces, and it's just like, oh my God, it's not life and death. You know, you're more gripped than I am. But they're like, you know, I'm going to go, I'm going to go, I'm going to go. And then they start thinking, I'm so excited to go, I couldn't possibly sit and I couldn't possibly stay. And they get, you know, if you're doing USDAA where you've got 6-7 runs a day over 3 days, and that's getting, you know, deteriorating, my maintenance program does have to add that. I think I wrote in this article, it was one of them, where the only good thing about having dogs with a bunch of different jump heights is I can take Tux out and heel him up to a jump, tell him stay, go change a couple, release him over those couple, tell him stay, go change a couple more, release him over those couple, tell him stay. So sitting there waiting in front of the jump, okay, becomes a little bit old hat. It's not this fresh, oh my God, this means I get to explode and do agility. And I have to do that because I don't do a lot of lead outs when I'm training. I like to keep flow going. So what I'm doing right now is I'm just giving you, you know, some little ideas about how and why I do maintenance, how I decide what needs my attention when I'm training, so that I'm not just practicing sequence and coursework when I go, you know, when I get to the place that I'm going to practice. So I talked a little bit about how to come up with this timing. So if I've got a national event, I do up my maintenance. The object of the game is to do as little maintenance as you have to, so you can do the sequence and coursework. Everybody wants to do the sequence and coursework, and so do I, because that's how I'm going to get in sync. I got to do that. So put a couple of minutes on it and give a number, you know, a number of times a week. So start with 5 to 8 minutes, 3 times a week. Now this is for a behavior your dog knows, guys. And if you can't do it because you don't have equipment, there's probably an element. For example, weave pulls is about collection. So I keep talking about how I'm working with these mark tubs, and just having your dog go to a mark tub and then go to another mark tub and go to another mark tub, that's practicing the art of go fast, collect up, go fast, collect up with excitement. And I believe that's a mechanical skill that could actually improve entering weave pulls. A lot of dogs that miss weave pulls, a lot of dogs that miss weave pull entries are not trained well enough. They just don't, the training just wasn't, they needed a couple more layers of training. But some dogs were trained perfectly well. They had great entrances at all different angles, but they don't get enough practice. Hitting that, the open gate, not where they wrap around the end pole to get in, that's in my mind's eye for most dogs. Easier, you go around and you wrap that first bolt because you're always going to the end pole. But when you're looking to go in and you see all these gates, it's like door number 1, door number 2, door number 3, that knowing to go back to that first gate is hard. So, and some dogs can hit that first gate just fine, and they can hit the third one going the other way, but to get all 3 is hard. So if they don't have the physical practice, it's just like anything. I do some yoga moves, and if I'm practicing them, I get really good. But if I don't do them regularly, I go to yoga class and I can't do them. But going back, I get refreshed faster and faster every time, you guys, and that's the goal. Don't feel like, oh shit, I got to go back to square one. No, you got to go back to kindergarten for maybe 2 sessions, and then up your maintenance program. So with Tux, I mean, now I could go out and not do polls for a couple of weeks, and I could probably go out on Thursday and do 5 minutes and do Friday 5 minutes, and I could probably, knock wood, be okay at the trial. So I'm always looking for ways to get the behavior I want with the least amount of maintenance. I don't want you guessing, well, my dog is weak at this, so I will always do 20 minutes 3 times a week of the X. Because if you do too much of it, it's going to backfire too. And anything we do weakens something else. Did you know that? Anything you train by virtue. You know it when you taught sitting down to your puppy, whichever one you were focusing on that week. When you went to the other one, he had a little bit of trouble remembering. He just wanted to do the down because that's what we've been doing the last 5 sessions. Doesn't remember the sit anymore, right? So it's the same thing with all of the behaviors. So I'm at about 423. What I'm trying to do is sell you on a maintenance program for individual behaviors. And I want you to know the difference between whether or not the behavior was well trained in the first place and you lost it, or if it was never really well trained to begin with. If it wasn't well trained to begin with, then you're looking at your training process. So your plan is, when I go back to kindergarten on a well-trained behavior, I'm not saying that they wouldn't be the same in some scenarios, they would be. But when I'm going back to kindergarten, it's a very, for those of you familiar with my 2 on 2 off program, it's a very specific thing that I do to refresh that dog's memory. If I'm telling my dog to stick on my leg and he's stealing obstacles, I'm just going to get out cookies and say, when you hear this, you're supposed to stick on my leg. And then I'll pass the obstacles and I'll do it 3 times, 4 times, and then I'll go right back to sequence. And then the next time I train, I'm going to ask them at the beginning of the session, did you remember that? Did you remember what this word meant when we're doing this, when we're running right up and past the tunnel? Did you remember? And then of course, I have to make sure I'm cueing correctly. For me, if I'm asking the dog to passing obstacles, I'm patting my leg and I'm repeating the command in a specific inflection. If I just say it once, he's going to think, no, I didn't. I stick to the leg. Now we get to the tunnel and I go in, because I have not trained my dog that he may not take anything unless I tell him to. How many people want that? I want my dog to never take anything unless I tell him to. Well, then we got to talk about, well, what does that mean? If I'm running toward an obstacle and it's in your path, I'm telling you. Doesn't matter if something's coming out of my mouth or not. So once I decide that, then if I'm moving towards something, it's a cue to take it. Do I like that? Do I want that? Yes. So you guys, I ask myself that all the time when I'm training. Like today, I had a small class, and I said, somebody, we were talking about what they had. The dog does X. And I said, do you see that your dog thinks this? And they said, yeah. And I'm like, do you want that? And she wasn't sure. I'm like, is it a good thing or a bad thing that your dog thinks that? And we had to talk about it. So whenever I do something and my dog interprets it a certain way, it's like, is that a good thing or a bad thing? Wow, my dog just took the tunnel when I did this. It was off course. Yes, I know, I understand that, but I hadn't given a decel cue. Yes, I was 6 miles behind. My weight shift was forward. I was moving at a rate of speed. He was in the path. I was paralleling the path. Do I want that to mean take the tunnel? Even if I'm 30 feet behind? What's the answer? So if you know the answer, then you can create a consistent training program. And then it's easy to go back to kindergarten. By the way, my answer is yes. If I'm paralleling your path, I don't want my position to be relevant if I'm moving forward and my weight is forward. If I lean back or I decel, I want you to notice that. So I'm not going to do that while you're weaving around the contacts, because I don't want to say ignore it sometimes, not others. Yes, I do say go do this no matter what, do that no matter what, but I'm not going to practice giving the dog cues that actually in other places, in fact, a lot, means something totally different. So I don't know if I've lost you. I'm hoping that we can get a discussion going, because with this topic, you guys, you can actually bring up any behavior, or I don't care if it's even agility related or training issue or obstacle issue. If you want some help figuring out, like you know, what I'm hoping for is I've got it in this scenario and that scenario, but every time I'm in this scenario, it doesn't work, and we can just do some problem solving. So let me, I talked about he knows that. I think I made it pretty clear the difference between maintenance training, new skills training, and sequence and coursework training, which skills to maintain. And we talked about some examples. It shouldn't take a lot of time if you've got a strong back to kindergarten. So in closing, what I said was, I hope you can see that losing behaviors and disintegrating skills are part of normal life for teachers, us, and their pupils, our dogs. It is a simple matter. Our dogs need our help. They need us to notice which skills they need to practice more in order to do them well. They can't just go practice on their own. So if you were going to take a test and the test was going to have spelling and history and geometry and science on it, and you were really, really good at science, you had no worries about the science, but you had a lot of worries about the geometry, and you got together with your tutor every week and they said, let's work on science, let's work on science, let's work on science, you'd be going, I think I got the science, I really want to work on the geometry. What if our dogs could do that on the way to a training session? What if they could say, you know, you seem to get a little hairy every time we do contacts. Could we just sort that out? Could we just work on the contacts? But I got to tell you a little secret, you guys. Most of my students, and me too, have preferences on what we like to train. And it's no secret that those things are usually the better trained things. It's not a coincidence, I mean. It's not a secret either. If you're my student, I can tell what you're working on. Sometimes we have the job of changing our dog's mind. They have an idea, and then we have an idea, and then they have an idea, and we start to believe each other. So if you need your dog to love something about this sport and he doesn't love it, find a backdoor approach and find a way to change his mind. Because if you've got a behavior or a skill that's weak and it's not you or your dog's favorite, how are we gonna get both of you to love that skill? Snooker just popped into my mind. I have so many students that do, or they'll go to USDA, and I'd love to just be at a trial every week and say, okay, who loves snooker? And there's no, there is no qualms. It's not quite the word I want, but the people that love snooker are the people that are good at it. And the people that don't love snooker are the people that don't love it. And they don't love it because they think it's hard. And they think it's hard because there's some skill. There's about 4 skills that you got to have to be good at snooker. Right. And they're not, and they're come to leg and pass things, but don't lose value for them either. And sending, being able to send and meet. So if you don't have those skills, snooker isn't fun. And if it's not fun, you don't want to do it, and see how that kind of snowballs, goes. So, but once you get good at the skills, then you want to play the game because you put the time into the skills, and then you start doing a little bit better. And most people, I don't know if anybody loves snooker off the bat, but I always tell my students, you gotta love snooker, gotta love pairs, and you gotta love snooker, and you gotta love team, at least a little bit. Okay, I'm gonna open it up to, I'm gonna look in at the chat. Oh, good, and I got that Mike was clacking. So my dog is super excited in class and will not hold a start line stay. So I need to get him to love to stay. Yeah, you do. Tips. So like I said, Tuxedo is not happy about staying at the start line either, but he doesn't resent it nearly as much. So could we teach them to love staying as much as loving the tunnel? I know what we can teach them. And this is through Mark training. We can teach them how to self-regulate where they're not resenting it. So you guys, I was talking about this in class the other day, and I love this topic. Do you know the difference between a dog that is on the start line and he looks like he's not sure if he should go? He's kind of, and he almost looks a little worried. And it's like, can I go? Can I go? Can I go? And it looks like they're being naughty, versus a dog that is maybe tap dancing a little bit, but he goes, I'm going to get to go. 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 If you don't know what I'm talking about and you are interested in dog behavior, you will learn more from watching dogs enter the ring, being asked to sit and stay, and what their faces look like when their handlers lead out, than I could teach you in 100 years. And their expressions, the vast majority, stuff it's a Chow or a Rottweiler, they're a little harder to read, although the Rotties can get pretty expressive with their body language too. So you will see the difference between, I'm not sure if I should go, and I'm going to get to go. I'm going to get to go. All I got to do is wait for the magic word. All I got to do is wait for the magic word. The Mark, getting a dog to stand with his 2 front feet on a bucket because it's fun, because it's tactile, because they dig it, can help them with that self-regulating because they like doing it. So teaching them to wait on a mark and being really clear with your release. We're going to do a topic called Please Release Me. And I'm so afraid that people aren't going to come because they're going to think, oh, this is crazy. But I have so many students that come to me with contact problems, start line stay problems, table problems. And it's not so much that the dog doesn't know to stay, although it sure looks like it. the dog doesn't know when to go because the stay hasn't been proved. And if you've seen my 2 on 2 off program, the lengths that I'll go to tease a dog. So those dogs are just going, they're all in. It's like, it's fun. The teasing part is fun because it's done as a challenge, not as I'm going to set you up. I'm going to set you up. And then if you goof, you're in trouble. I used to do that. I know what it's like. It was years ago, and it's no fun for the dog. It's not fun for me either. So yes, you can teach. What you wait till you get your release can be fun, but if they're not getting it turned into a game enough, it won't stay fun. It's an ongoing thing. I'm not familiar with mark tubs. What are they and how do I use them? They are a black rubber bowl that's used to feed farm animals in. And the forequart is about $6. And it's just simply teaching your dog to put his front feet on it, but you make it a game. And I'm working with a woman named Dev, who's got an online class, and we're using the marks. She's done it for longer than I have. And the online class is a test run. It's a closed test run. So as soon as it's open, we're doing is we're using the mark as an emotional anchor. We're letting the dogs get super excited. They can paddle their feet on it, but they learn that they want to be on it. And when they get so excited that they leave, you just freeze and they're like, oh yeah, I got to get on my mark. And I've been using it with my dogs at the swimming pool because you think, oh my gosh, my dogs are excited at agility. Oh my good Lord, the swimming pool. Their brains are dripping out of their ears. I can see it visually, the gray matter oozing from their ears. But they can get on their pads, and what's cool about it is they're allowed to be super, 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 super excited. So I'm not trying to squelch them. I just don't want them to leave. I don't want to hurt their feelings. I want them to be excited. So it's kind of a self-regulating thing. And I'm going to be teaching more and more with the mark tubs because the more I do it, the more I see value in it. How I teach loving my dog shuts down when she walks in the ring. Yeah, that is so, that's why I was saying, that stepping into the ring is like stepping into the looking glass. And I just see the handler and the dog. Like I love watching, if you're filming your friends at trials or at class, don't film when they lead out. Film before they go in the ring. If my students have me filming them, I am filming when the dog ahead of them is halfway through, the camera goes on the student. Because there's times, you guys, where I can see that student totally engaging that dog. We're going to have some fun. They're playing, they're tugging. And then that dog ahead of them gets halfway around the course and there is like, oh my God, somebody just got run over by a car. That's how the handler looks. Like, oh, something terrible just happened out there. Come on, let's go in. Because they got nervous because it's their turn. So that shift in the handler's energy often is like, oh my gosh, my handler just went from we're about to have a party to there's something to be worried about. Was there a snake out there? What's going on out there? Did she change? So fake it till you make it is my theory on that. And then also practicing in class, being a little nervous. I learned with the help of a woman named McAleese. She does some work with Clean Run. Kathleen McAleese. She's a psychologist and she's an agility person. And she helped me tap into what she calls them your gremlins that make you not be the sweet, happy, lovey-dovey human that your dog has at home. And we used to point our fingers and say, that person doesn't have a relationship with that dog. They don't have any relationship. And because the dog looked like he didn't even want to be near the person. You know what I found out? I found out it isn't all, you guys. Some people don't have a great relationship with their dog. Some people need a better relationship for sure. But what I found out was sometimes those are actually the more extraordinary relationships. They're the more sensitive human with the more sensitive dog. The dog is actually more in tune to that person at home than someone else's. Tuxedo, you show him a ball and he will go with anybody, my dog. He will go with anybody that has a tennis ball. There's a lot of dogs that aren't like that. And I'm beginning to suspect that those are the dogs that read their handler. So you guys, how many times have you been crying and your dog comes up and licks your face? We got them. We love them because they're sensitive. And then we want them to ignore it when we feel like we're going to throw up. So there's things that can be done. I do a lot of writing about competing, and it also just may be the routine. It can be so many things that makes their little, like when I've got a dog, when I realized all this, you guys, I've learned everything the hard way, everything. I've learned everything in the sport the hard way. I would go to matches, then I would go into the ring, monitoring my energy, you guys. I mean, I could get really, really all crystally on you, but just noticing what I'm feeling inside of me, and like, you know, walking into a ring and taking a minute and smiling at my dog like, hey, bud, hi. You know, instead of like, oh, it's all about the course and the judge and the timer and the judge and the timer and the course and the judge and the timer and the course. And you got this whole thing going, what about me? Maybe you'd be, I could just wait out here. I could just wait out here and you could go do the thing with the course and the judge and the timer. So I think I'm making my point. And I have had dogs where I've just gone into the ring at a match and gotten them up and lined them up and released them to their toy. I actually do that with my dogs all the time. I line them up. If they line up nice, I act like I'm getting ready to lead out and I go and let them have their tug toy. So I'm learning how for both of us to be relaxed, and I'll go into a match and I'll just go into the ring, play, go back out. So I'm opening the door and teaching the dog, we step in, we have fun, we leave. We step in, we have fun, we leave. We step in, we heal, we have fun, we leave. We step in, we heal, we line up, we have fun, we leave. And you can do that at a fun match. And forget about this stupid weave poles and the 270. And if the start line is the thing, if that little special place, I mean, I've run soft dogs, and when I run a soft dog, I am talking to them and telling them I love them and they're my little baby and I love you so much, and we're going to have some yummies in our tummies as soon as we are done. And we go into the ring just like that, and we never stop talking like that. And if it causes me to forget the course, I'm going to go off course, because I don't get to with that dog. I don't get to go yummies in the tummies and turn off to them like that. They can't handle it. Okay, I could talk about that forever. Could talk about everything forever. Oh, sniffing, head turning, obviously not happy. It may be sometimes as easy, you guys, as not smiling. Just keep smiling at them. Show them every tooth in your head, even if you feel like you're going to throw up. And this is one that was really hard for me. I fought this for a long time. Tell them they're good. I used to say, I'm not going to tell that dog it's good if I'm not getting what I want. I'm not going to say sniffing's good. I'm not going to say, But I'll tell you what, if you don't feel like you're being good and somebody tells you you are good, it's nice. It's nice. And they are being good. They showed up, they're taking in air, they're being as good as they can be. So if you're constantly saying they're good forever and ever and ever in the presence of an unwanted behavior, sure, it's going to backfire. Yep, it's going to backfire. So you got to play your cards carefully, and then just practice more going in. Like what I'll do too is the dog, I don't know if this is legal. If you get busted, you didn't hear it here. But when the dog ahead of me is running, the judge is usually watching the dog. And I'll like open the gate and close it and tell them they're good and give them a cookie and open the gate and move toward it and then do an about face and walk away and play. So I'm trying to desensitize that spot where it all breaks. Sometimes it's just stepping through the gate. Okay, does anybody want to ask a question? Those are all the questions in the chat. It can be about maintenance. Do you have some behaviors on maintenance? Do you ever worry about doing too much or too little? Do you feel from the talk and from the article that you know how to regulate? Rondi, do you have a question? Your little mic is showing on. Come on, guys, throw something at me. You got all your behaviors just the way you want them? Do you know what to do when you're training and you don't get what you want? Are you able to not show frustration? Can you keep smiling? Anybody that I answered your question, did I answer it enough? Anything off of the article you want to ask me about? A random question? I'm very happy to say I would do this in this situation. Is it that you, I got one for you. I'll ask the questions then. Is it not possible? Do you only have class to go to? Is maintenance, if you don't have equipment in your yard, is it just going to class? Do you have a place where you can rent equipment? When you rent equipment, do you isolate specific obstacles and ask your dogs, hey buddy, do you still, so say you taught, when you taught your reed poles, you taught a bunch of blind crosses at the end and you taught a bunch of rear crosses at the entrance, but you haven't done them in a while in sequence and coursework. If you had that on your project list, you could go straight to your training field and say, I haven't done blind crosses at the end of the poles in a long time. I'm going to knock a few of those out. Do you go there with individual, or do you just go and kind of see what's set up and run sequences?
I usually just go whatever is set up, you know, run that. So I probably should rethink like, oh, here's something I really need to be working on when I go practice, as opposed to, oh, whatever set up is what I'll practice.
Yeah, I have because I have my preferences and my obsessions, I look at my contacts as I go do, I love training it all. I love training. So I'll go train crazy stuff on the weed poles, just crazy. I'll throw balls when he's halfway through, I'll turn and run the other way. And then so I'll often use my dog up and not get to my sequence and coursework. So what I would recommend is if you've rented a place for an hour, or if you know you're going to go out, if it's a little hot, I'm going to do a 20-minute session, break it up. Say, I'm just going to do sequence and coursework but if you're like me, I'll get a little into something, but it is a way. Or you could say, I'm going to do sequence and coursework on these days. And on the other days, these are my maintenance days, where I'm going to check in with my 270 skills. I'm going to check in with my weave pole skills. I'm going to do a bunch of rears, and I'm going to see if there's things I can do that can make him pull out, or if he's remembered to stay in. Because you guys, the problem with sequence and coursework is we're handling well. We're handling according to the sequence. So the dogs are getting used to us being in a relatively small sphere of space and position because we're doing a good job. So then when we get to trial, and it would be really nifty to do something different, it'd be really nifty to cross behind, or it'd be really nifty to do a blind at the end, or it would be really nifty to peel off of, I'm talking weed poles and contacts, all that could apply. It'd be really nifty to make this move, but either my dog has never seen it or he hasn't seen it in so long. And then you risk it, and then you go, I shouldn't have. Don't do that to your little self. If you want to risk it and know it's a risk. If you don't want to risk it, don't risk it, and don't wish you then did when you can't make another part of the course work because you didn't risk it. Just do your best on it all. I'll share a story from this weekend's AKC trial. We did fast. Okay. Who's sharing? Sharing. Oh, that was to me privately. Whoops, hit return. We did fast, perfect on all contexts. Ooh, that's exciting. When we did jumpers with weaves, then a 4-hour break that can be really significant. Then run standard where he flew off the teeter and A-frame. Not sure what the solution is, but we took a break and...
Sorry, I keep getting cut off with the messaging. So what we did was so that was on a Friday when we did the standard, and it was just a nightmare. So then the next day I thought, well, we'll do fast. He did perfect on fast, did well in jumpers. And then there's another 4-hour break. So I just put him in the car, just took him away from the trial and just put him in the car. And then we did standard and he did his contacts. So I don't know, it wasn't so much the training thing as more, I think it was just more of a mental thing. He needed to get away from the trial. I don't know if that is a solution or not.
You don't know. And it's wonderful for you to say, I don't know what made the difference. The main thing is that what you don't want to do is get too bought in to figuring out what works and what doesn't in general. So you guys, I know what I think may help or may not, but you won't be able, you don't want to get locked in to where your training is not strong enough that if you can't do the things that seem to make a difference, you're not going to get your behavior. So I would call that, if that did make the difference, goody gumdrops for that weekend, but it may mean that you've got a weak link in your behavior, that he needs certain elements to be there in order to do it. So I hope that makes sense. But asking those questions is, so the main thing would be, what is the difference between the communication in the ring when he gets it right versus what is the communication in the ring when he gets it wrong? And what I notice a lot of people will do is the information for the dog is exactly the same in both scenarios, which usually means continuing handling and continuing on to the next obstacle. So that to me, so what we get on that given day is what we get on that given day. What I want happening is going to affect the future. I want to strengthen the future performance. So I want to make sure that I'm doing things myself that can help that dog understand. You just nailed it. You guys, if you think of it like this, I've determined that in my world, if I keep going, it means everything is perfect. The world is perfect. So if so I can communicate, that was great, by not giving feedback, not giving any feedback, simply continuing to handle must be praise. It must be. It must mean you're on the right track. It must be, I'm thrilled. So I can have a dog make a mistake, for lack of a better word. I know, we've got nice ways of talking about our dogs, but things that I didn't want to happen, and communicate and still handle and still cue. Was the communication strong enough? Or did I really have to, lay him down and leave the ring and, all this stuff? Well, I won't know until the next run, and he'll tell me. So you did do something that seemed to affect the next run. What I want to know, is that something that you can always do? That's something that seemed to work. And then you get to ask the dog the next time, this seemed to work last time. Let's see if it does the next time. And don't worry your pretty little head about whether that really was the key or not, because your dog will tell you the next time you're out there. They're so honest. I hope that helps. So
that makes sense. Thank you. That was great.
Good. So if my dog pulls out of the weaves, do I reset and try again? If so, how many tries? Oh, I love that question. I love that question. Oh my gosh, my friend Mo Strenfell, I don't know if you know Mo Strenfeld, but she is a brilliant dog trainer. And she taught me a lesson that was really hard for me to learn. So here's how I looked at it. And this is going to make really good sense. So you have a dog that pops out of the poles and you go back to fix the poles and the dog pops out again. I would say, make it easier. Move in closer and get your poles. Now there's value in that. But what Mo said, I saw Mo in trial with a fairly young dog, brilliantly trained. Now this is the other part of that coin, you guys. You got to know how well trained the dog is. You can't be trying something brand new. You can't, what I'm about to say does not apply if it's something the dog has never seen and you're just crap shooting it. So I watched her and her dog pulled out of pole 10 and she was way the hell over. With a young dog, I'm even thinking, man, that's a lot to ask. She does it again, throws him in, does the same exact distance, dog pulls out again. And I'm thinking, help him, help him, help him. And she didn't. And she never got it. She tried the 3 times and had to leave, or chose to leave, had to move on and chose to leave. And she was happy with the dog, playing with it. There was no hard feelings at all. And I'm like, couldn't you have just made it easier? Couldn't you have just moved in and helped him a little bit? And she goes, what would that lesson be? And I mean, the lesson would be, you finish your poles, you get it right. And she goes, what if the lesson would be, if I want you to weave, I'll stay close. And if I don't want you to weave, I'll stay out. And I was like, oh. So you guys, if you can think, what was the actual lesson, and what did you intend for the lesson to be, and what conclusion did your dog draw? Especially the last 4 dogs drew this conclusion. I get that. I do that too. So I was like, oh my gosh. So then I realized in class in general, every time we make something easier and then we go harder again, you guys, morphine, I'm not saying never help the dog. I'm saying that's answering a question. Her dog was saying, do I have to stay in the pole with you over there? And she didn't want to say, no, if I want you to stay in the poles, I'll go closer. And she was willing to risk the dog. She had a real good chance, because the dog was trained, of it staying in and getting exactly what she wanted at that distance. And she didn't mind risking the failure. So, she did her 3 and then she's like, oh, not ready for that. Just like I was saying before, thought I had it and I don't. Who cares? So now, if the dog is it's not if you put them back in, it's how you put them back in. So you guys, when you put a dog back in the poles and you start, I've got a message from Zoom that is scaring me. I'm just going to slide. I'm just sliding it out of the way. Where was I? Somebody help me. Just spit it out.
Getting the dogs back in the weave.
Oh yeah. So if you, it's not if, it's how. If you rush, I gotta rush. Don't rush. They already missed it. They're already rattled. You're already rattled. So I breathe. He missed it. Hey, bud, try that again, pal. So rushing is bad. Anger is absolutely unacceptable. So if you can do it, if you can keep your wits about you, I don't know how experienced you are in trail, but that keeping your wits about you when you're out there with your dog and you're just, singing like nobody's watching, you guys. Oh my gosh, if you can be with your dog like nobody's watching and just say, hey, whoa, pal, let me show you something. And Tux, I'll take him way back. And if he's all like, oh, good, I'm like, no, you're going to heel with me for just a second and I'll help him. And it feels like it's taking forever and it feels like you're going to make the judge mad. And it's not taking forever. It just feels like it, I promise. But if you're going to get hysterical and rush and throw the dog at a crappier angle than maybe he had in the first place and just keep, that's a soft dog will hate that. A dog that won't hate it will get likely more rattled. So you want, if you're going to fix it, you want to be effective. You want to meet your dog. You want to meet your partner's needs. So if you can keep a soft dog up and encourage, we got this, pal. Come on, Tiger Butt, let's try that again. If you can do what your partner needs and get the we pull entry, do it. But if you're going to make it worse, don't. And I had a friend who had a real soft little dog, and that little dog got a wire crossed about those poles. And it went downhill so fast. It was a little Papillon. And I don't think that little Papillon liked that base on his little feet. And I don't think he liked those big sticks in his way. And he really seemed to not want to do it. And somebody told her, don't make him. If you force him, he'll hate him. Good. Sounds good, right? Yeah, if you make something do, that's why I'm talking about make them love them. But this was a really good trainer, and she was making that dog love those poles at home. But what, in my humble opinion, the dog was, and I don't want to say let off the hook, you guys, because it's not a hook, but the dog, she decided not to make the dog because she didn't want to risk a negative thing around the poles. But the actual lesson was, see those things and don't do them, because that's what happened week after week after week. So that's what I'm talking about. You may have the intention of, I won't make you because I don't want you to have a negative experience in the ring, and I don't want you to have a negative experience around the poles. So I'll ask you if you want to do them. And if the answer is no, you don't have to. That sounds like a kind and loving thing. But if the dog ends up drawing the conclusion, cool, I don't like them and I don't want to do them, so I won't ever again. And it's kind of what happened. The dog got the wrong message that weaving didn't have to be a part of agility. And weaving is a part of agility, and you do have to do the poles, but there's other classes you can enter without the poles. So there's lots of ways to play it. Thank you. My method really worked with Loretta and the poles. And Loretta, we set her up and sweetly and nicely. We made sure we were handling nicely. We took her back in a kind and gentle way. And thanks for that, Christine. You're such a good, you guys, what we were able to do is figure out what would probably work with Loretta, because Loretta did love poles and she did have them, but we were getting up into the numbers that she was not weaving, where, oh my God, we are getting Loretta thinking that it's optional. You know, and you guys, we say it's optional, but is it really? I mean, it's not. For my dogs, it's not optional, man. I spent all that money. I got up at 5. Oh. All right. Any other questions? It's 5:02. Remember, I'm thinking $25 a month if you want to come more often. $10 is cool. If you never want to come back, there's a donation button, acedogsports.com. I will type my address in right now. It's 1424 G Street, Rio Linda, California, 9567.
Sandy?
Yep.
Could you send us an email or put something on Ace Dogs that's specific about what we're supposed to do? Because I'm pretty confused. I do the $25 each time. I just do the donation, but it's so loose, you know, this is a little too loose for me. I don't know what to do.
Because I'm new to all this, and lots of you have paid $25 a time. So what I want you to do is not pay for a while. If you paid 8 times, you've got 8 months. If you're getting great value and you want to give a little bit more, I'm trying to keep it affordable and not give it away to everybody all the time for free. So I do apologize. It is loose. And my financial guy is saying it, but somebody like for you, those of you that have paid $25 a time, I just felt like when I asked people, how come I haven't seen you? They're like, well, I can't afford $100 a month. So I just wanted to not have people feeling bad that I was expecting them to pay $100 a month.
Okay, so ideally, how much a month do you feel is fair for the service?
$2,000. Just kidding. Just kidding. You guys, it's an hour of instruction. It's group. And I think the value changes. If we do a membership, which is where we may go, the membership cost would be $25 a month. Because if I could get 12 people to pay $25 a month, I can do it. I can do it. So, and then that's what I'm thinking. So if you've paid a bunch, just don't pay for a while, or know that you really did me a big favor and helped me get this off the ground. So yes, I'm sorry that it's a little bit.
Yeah, that doesn't quite tighten it all up, but I know you will, and we'll see it on Ace Dogs on the website, what we're supposed to do.
Yes,
Thank you. I do think it's valuable. And one thing that I would love to see if it's possible, and I don't know if you could do a share screen with this, but if you wouldn't mind doing it, I would love for you to do one of your runs and take us through it. I mean, I don't know if you want to do that, but
I love it. We did with Zoom, I did some Zoom screen sharing with video, and it was kind of choppy for some people, but I've had other friends say, don't let that stop you. Go ahead and do the Zoom, and if somebody has bad internet, it's going to be choppy for them and maybe it won't work for them. So I love doing that and would be happy to set up another time and do some video analysis of myself. Yeah, because I've got one in mind. All right, you guys, thank you so much for coming. And I'm sorry about the confusion for the cost. To me, I started with $25, felt like good value for an hour of information. And then $100 a month felt like too much. So I guess what we're saying is 0 is not enough. So maybe 25 a month is kind of a minimum if you're going to keep on coming. And if you feel like you've overpaid, just keep coming and don't pay for a while.